Sandtroopers.com. Never imitating, always innovating, bringing you the latest coverage in the Star Wars galaxy.
And they could use it or not use it, whatever they wanted to do. I mean, to this day, I get like books and stuff of reprints from the Marvel, days that Dark Horse does. They just sort of show up.
Right.
Or I get little plastic Ewoks in the mail. There's like no note, nothing like that. But that's because they use some of the Marvel art. It's all theirs. It's theirs now.
And that's just part of the license. But that doesn't necessarily mean the reprinting of those books is still part of canon.
Right.
A lot of that stuff is still taken out of canon and will never be seen again. Yeah. But it's part of the history of what Star Wars is in the culture.
Now, is there anything in the Marvel time period that's not canon that you really wish would have been included?
You mean
as far as stories or characters?
From the Marvel days?
Yeah, from the Marvel
days.
Anything there that is gone?
Well, I thought the Nagai were really cool, and apparently they did make it into the books, so that's nice. Joe was doing this thing, and it didn't get a reveal before the book was canceled and it went over to Dark Horse, but Han Solo has an illegitimate half-brother, and his name's Bay, and he's got an eye patch, and he's like 2 feet taller than Han, and he was dead sexy. And it was always, he had like, there was a Japanese historical soap opera called The Conspiracy of the Yagyu Family, and this guy, the chief Ronin samurai, and it was called Yagyu Jubei, which is why she called him Bei. And so he was that guy. He had the big bushy hair, only it was all white instead of all black like it was in the TV show, and he had an eye patch just like that guy, and I drew him just like that guy looked. And he was always running around with his shirt off, and we thought he was cool. So I think Han needs an illegitimate brother. So that would have been fun, but it's amazing, any of it. There were hard feelings. Lucasfilm was angry when Marvel lost the rights. Marvel lost the rights in large part because they were angry. Do you want to know why? Would you like to know why?
Do we want to know why?
Yeah. This is a good story, but now I got this from my editor, my Star Wars editor, and my Star Wars writer, so I'm not going to swear that this is the absolute truth. This is what they told me. We had the comic book over here, which was doing its own little continuity and everything. And then a completely separate imprint was the adaptations of the movies, of the films. And that was done by Tom Palmer and, oh God, who was the penciler on those? Al Williamson, okay, and he did do really intense likenesses. Yeah. They did these beautiful, one-shots that were each movie. And so they had finished Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi was just about to be released in theaters, and they had finished the comic book adaptation of Return of the Jedi. And somebody in marketing let the comic book adaptation hit the stands 3 days before the movie opened. And heads rolled, and that was the end of Marvel's association with Lucasfilm. And the sales weren't great. Nobody was going to fight really hard, but we didn't have any. There was no recourse. He owned it, and that was the end. It's not like Marvel had any rights in the thing at all. So boom, that was it. It went to Dark Horse.
Wow.
Yeah, that was. We didn't have anything to do with it. Okay, we didn't. It was some fool in marketing, but that was the end. So.
Any questions?
Anyway, if I can just finish up real quick.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
That's all right. That's all right. That was a fun story. I remember that in the news, actually.
Yeah, that was intense.
That was a very big deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, after Dark Horse got the license, they were nailed down very specifically as to what they could do with the characters beyond Return of the Jedi. They couldn't touch anything prior to A New Hope. This was when they started the license. Obviously, they've moved on to before and after. But during the 90s, from I think it was 91 through 2000, something like that, they couldn't touch anything prior to A New Hope because obviously Lucasfilm was working on the prequels. But they were very specific in George had ideas of what he wanted to do with the characters beyond Return of the Jedi, but he didn't tell anybody. He just let Dark Horse do the books and let them come back from Lucasfilm with red marks saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do this, but this is good, this is good, this is good.
That must have been lots of fun.
Yeah. So eventually, when Lucas decided not to pursue the third series of sequels after Jedi, he just opened up the expanded universe and said, okay, you know, we are hiring you people to add to this universe, but we will control what is added to it. And so they are very strict with a timeline right now, where characters sit within that timeline, what has happened, who they are, blah, blah, blah. New characters can be added, old characters can be killed off, but now they have a whole unit at Lucasfilm that all they do is read stuff that's coming in, approve stuff that's going out, and making sure that there's no overlapping of characters, the same character conflicting storylines between books and comics, or toys, or with the new animated series, or even the live action that they're working on. It's just a whole staff that all they do is oversee what all the licensed stuff at Lucasfilm is doing. And that's a big job. But that's why it's making the life of the Star Wars license more interesting, because you have this sort of direct timeline that everything happens in, and there's no confusion. When somebody reads a book and then sees the same character in the comic, they don't say, wow, that character is really different from the book. They say, that character is exactly like he was in the book. So that is a very strong point, and I think what makes the Lucasfilm license a lot stronger than, say, Star Trek, which they just fill out pretty much anything all over the place.
And right now the area between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope is off limits, because that's
Right.
supposedly
That's
where
where
the
the TV
TV
show's
series
gonna
is
go.
going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, does that kind of scrutiny, is that the genesis of going back, like say, the Tales of the Old Republic? So you go way back in history, or you go so far forward with K2 with the Skywalker line. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the reasons why Dark Horse did that, was to escape the very strict oversight that Lucasfilm had over the characters that were in the film. I mean, George loves those characters. I mean, he created them. They're his characters. They're his babies. And he does not want anybody to tell a story of those characters that he does or wouldn't want to tell himself. But if you step back 1,000 years, or if you move forward, 200 years, well, those are no longer his characters per se. They're part of the universe, but they're not his children. And so there's a little bit more flexibility on both sides of that. And that's why you see more material appearing in those eras than you do very strictly within the, 25 years of the 6 films.
Now, let me ask you this for just a second. With technology changing over all of the years, your art techniques have probably had to adapt, whether it's pen and ink, using Photoshop, you're still using pencils or whatever. Has the printing process made it easier? Has the whole technology and process of making the books given you a little bit more resources in what you can do with the artwork? Or does it really have any kind of an impact? You still are just going to draw it and use whatever is at hand?